Here. So I'd like to welcome Todd Morrow as our first candidate to appear this evening, and thank you so much for being here with us and for taking our questions that we've collected across Holly Lake Ranch. The candidates have not, you need help? Push the button in and it'll turn green. Got it? Just to let you know, the candidates have seen the pool of questions, but they have not seen the exact questions that they'll be asked. So we did try to remove a couple that were redundant, so if you didn't hear your question asked exactly how you submitted it, do not be mad at me.
Okay.
Okay. And we're going to go through the questions. Tom is going to be timekeeper. There's 35 minutes allotted for each candidate. If we get through the questions before the 35 minutes is up, then you can circle back to anything you want to.
Sounds good.
Okay. Keith, do we have plenty of volume for Todd?
Am I okay up here?
I
Everybody
need,
here?
I need it to be as loud as I think I sound.
Okay.
Do I sound good?
I'll sound like a concert here. Test, 1, 2, 3, test.
Check.
Check. There you go.
There you go.
That is the
Right.
you know.
Okay, and also in an effort to have more talking from Todd and stick to the questions that were submitted in advance, we will not be taking questions from the audience, but jot them down when you have them, or if you have a question after you heard his answer, and then you can meet up with him, at one of his other events. Okay? Everybody cool? Okay, 3, 2, 1, here we go.
A lightning round.
Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. What would your top 3 initiatives be if you are elected, and why? What would you be willing to sacrifice to ensure your top 3 succeed?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know that we really need to sacrifice a whole lot since we are able to walk and chew gum at the same time. But I would say the biggest thing for me is the development of a strategic plan for the ranch. And that means deeper than the 5-year plan. That's going into dates and a planning throughout several years. I'm looking to keep the ranch looking like the ranch and being the ranch for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe past long, when all of us in the room are gone and whatever, our kids are in our homes. So that to me is a very important process. I know that those strategic plans will change from administration to administration. They'll wiggle, but it'll still provide a true north compass that we can follow. That's something I think we can dive down into all the operational side as well as our capital expense or restricted funds expense. That's where it will go. Of course, the second one is going to be lowering our expenses if we possibly can, looking at the process that we do launch into. How are we doing it? Are we doing it the most effective way? Also want to see the land that is in HLR that is controlled by outside interest become HLR-owned properties. We have something before us right now I know you all are aware of, that we have an opportunity. I call it an opportunity, others might differ with me, an opportunity to gain control of the emergency spillway. That is land that is owned by somebody else and not us. So I'm looking to, over the long run, and work toward this in the long run, to gain control of areas like the dam, like the lakes, like the golf course. Those kind of areas, those common areas that we have, that we can gain control of so we can control where we're going with those things. Now, what would I give up? Give up that? It's got to be within budget. It's got to be able to be planned. It's got to be able to happen within a business-like manner. It's not something that say, okay, we'll sell you the dam for $20 million. Well, then I guess we're just not going to own the dam. So that's not something I'm willing to fall on our sword about. But at the same time, I think it's imperative that we move in that direction. So I also would like to see us really examine and review for new revenue sources that we can bring into the ranch. About everything we do is all based upon our collective maintenance fees. I'd like to find new ways we can do that. I don't know what those sources would be, but I would love to put together a work group that would just sit down and high level it, throw any kind of whatever against the wall, and then we can start developing from there and see what might be something that we can do that we can drive new revenue sources so that we don't have to keep coming back to the well with our members.
Where do you see the board's responsibilities ending and the administration's responsibilities beginning?
In a real high level basis, I see the board sets the vision and the direction and the expectations, and the staff executes. That's how I see it.
Okay, sorry. How do you view the performance, integrity, direction, and stewardship of our current board and administration, and what would you or could you do to improve it?
I think the biggest problem that I see with our current board right now is a full communication package. I mean, we get to the board meetings and it's clearly been discussed in a private session. It's clearly been reviewed, and they get to the board meeting and now we're gonna vote on this. All in favor say aye, nay, done deal, and it moves on. I would like to see where we spend time, if we're going to make a vote, that we spend time essentially understanding what we're voting on, why it came before the board, what was done to examine that and figure out, what all the ramifications of that decision. And then now we're going to vote. I think it's owed to the membership that a full explanation is had. Now there's an extension on that I actually got just the other day from talking to some great people here, that maybe we need to slow our roll a little bit on some of these things. That we put it out in one board meeting and take feedback from the floor, also then take feedback from the website, and then we actually vote and once again have the full explanation and vote on it at a following meeting. Now, I do want to put one caveat in. If we do all that, and somebody walks into the voting board meeting, and then they walk up to the board and they offer, I need you to examine this before you do anything. Well, buddy, you're just too late. You had your opportunity. Come on. You can't just stop the wheels of progress. So there's got to be a little bit of give and take. But I think right now, there is far too much darkness when it comes to the board on communication.
Okay, I'm going to read you a list of different areas, and I'm going to ask you to answer yes to the ones that you have expertise in. You ready? So, finance and accounting.
No.
Communications, public relations.
Yes.
Marketing, branding.
Yes.
Law enforcement.
No.
Processes and controls.
Yes.
Standards and measurement.
Yes.
Management accountability.
Yes.
Operations.
Yes.
Lake maintenance.
No.
Multi-building asset management.
No.
Negotiation.
As in sales. Yes.
Legal.
Legal negotiations. No.
Okay. Well, no, just legal. Just legal.
Oh, legal.
background.
No.
Okay, got it. All right, next question. If you are elected, this person is passionate, prepare yourself. If you are elected, are you going to represent us, or will you just be a follower to whomever has the loudest voice on the board?
Honestly, these are a lot of great questions, but that just kind of fell flat for me. You're going to be elected to the board. You're going to be your own person. You're going to, if you are going to be the person going to roll over and play dead because somebody's yelling at you, don't get on the board. You got to have some backbone. You got to stand up for what you believe is correct. You got to be able to support it, but you got to do that. So for me, I I don't care who's yelling at me. You know, in fact, that brings my estimation of that person down, not up. So I'm not going to go along to get along.
Okay, ready? One of the most complaints on the ranch is that the board is not transparent and they do not keep the membership well informed. What is your opinion about this, and how do you intend to change it? So you answered that
Yes.
partially, but what's your idea for changing it?
The change is making sure that we have a full feedback loop. That when like I said, that we put it before the board in one meeting, examine it, revisit it at a later board meeting once you've had a chance to look at it, and then bring it to a vote at that point.
Got it.
So you're looking for the full feedback loop. You want to get it all in there.
How do you intend to maintain contact with the tone and feel of the ranch throughout your term? Not just your circle of friends, but the opinions of other people on the ranch. Will you hold ongoing meetings with your constituents? How will you communicate and stay in touch?
You know, this is a really good question. Whoever submitted it, good for you. We spend all this time, and I really hadn't considered that, so it really made me think. And I started thinking, we spend all this time in these meet and greets before we get elected. And then there's no more meet and greets. So I would be very supportive and would look to thinking about, you know, working together and generating meetings like this again on an ongoing basis. Not as plentiful as election season, because I couldn't take it. But if I had the opportunity to sit down with people that I don't normally sit down with and gain their perspectives, that only makes us better. So, hooray to the person who submitted this question. It really made me think, and thank you.
How will you decide what is voted on at a board of directors open meeting vote, as opposed to decisions made at weekly meetings with executive staff behind closed doors?
That's another very good question. I had to really think long and hard about this too. The operation, I would think the simple operations of the ranch is probably something more along the lines that would handled in the work sessions. But big things, votes on changes, things like we're talking about now with this new opportunity, larger items, things are going to be impactful to the membership. I think those things need to be in an open board meeting.
Do you agree that this is a member-driven association, not board-driven?
Well, I've tried real hard to figure out exactly, what that means, because a member-driven organization, but we are a republic form of democracy, so the members are electing their board members to work and act for them. So I think it's a bit of both. Probably as far as the day-to-day operations, it's probably more board-driven. They're spending the time to understand what the issues are and act on them, but really it's the membership, the electorate, who are electing those folks, and then we'll have, once again, if we have the feedback loop, to advise the board of what they need to be doing.
Do you agree that our current amenities should be repaired and properly maintained before new amenities are added?
Okay, so that's a good question. I believe that there is no reason at all why our amenities cannot be maintained in proper order. I think the folks of the First Impressions team did a fantastic job of identifying and helping us get our ranch back to looking the way we want it to look. But the last thing we want to do is watch it sink again. So this comes back to my strategic plan. The strategic plan for me also incorporates maintenance schedules, so that we are going out there on a very regular basis and looking at and doing inspections on our buildings and our grounds and what we are supposed to be maintaining, and then we will identify what needs help and do that, and make sure our amenities don't sink. There's also a need for upgrading some amenities whenever they get overwhelmed with use. And you can look at this and say, gee, do we need a, I don't know, I mean, I'm using it just as an example. Do we need another launch at the lake? Do we need something else at the lake? Do we need something else with the golf course? And I know this is probably leading toward the idea of, in the 5-year plan, has 2 more pickleball courts added for next year. And that's on the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan, though, has to be voted in every year for each year. So if it looks like that's really, we put it on the 5-year plan, but it's really not going to fit this year, it's not going to fit this year. We've got to manage our money just the way everybody else does in their own households these days, and so you got to manage that money appropriately. So I think if there's a need to have an amenity upgraded because you have a very popular amenity like pickleball, that you need to take a look at that. But it doesn't mean you sacrifice the maintenance of the rest of the ranch for that. Make sense?
If you are elected, are you willing to improve the safety of property owners in Section 6 and Section 3 by installing an intercom or phone line for use by emergency vehicles without gate X, i.e. if the ambulance comes from Winsboro versus the ambulance stationed here responding to 911 calls?
It was my understanding that was actually the case already, but I could be, because the ambulance might be out of area. Is that what you're talking? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because if they
Okay.
don't have access,
Okay,
they
and
don't- we
it
don't
just
have
would
that.
take a long time for security to get out there and open that gate for them, is what you're saying?
well, yeah, and
Okay.
this specific time that this person is referring to, they had to go back, the ambulance had to go back over to the guard shack and then
Get a
back to
ticket.
Section 6.
And get it taken, go back.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, that makes absolutely no sense at all to me. I would think that you'd want it, especially since they are so far away from the security department or the security headquarters, that it would make nothing but good sense to look at installing those safety checks. We got really good people in all areas of this in this ranch. Those folks are separated from the main areas, and those gates are separated. Those ambulances need to get to those folks too.
What are your feelings about our current architectural committee, and do you see the need for improvement in review, inspections, and enforcement?
I heard a little chuckle, maybe there's a little movement here, but yes, I'm not familiar with the breadth of what the ACC does entirely, but I would think that rather than just looking at it and saying, is it off the easement and they have plans for me and everything else, I would like to see something more akin to the building. I know we don't have codes out here, but I'd like to see something akin to that being developed for the ranch, so that we could say, look, and inspections on the infrastructure of whatever structure is being built, that we know is being done right. I think, we probably all have a house or two to look at and thought, wow, how'd they get away with that?
Yeah.
And one that comes to my mind is, I'm thinking about, I said, wow, I feel bad for that person who is getting into that house. So I think the ACC has got to take more ownership of that, but we'd have to also take a look at the legal ramifications and their ability to really make anything stick. So that's the other side of that coin.
After a year of hard-fought negotiations, an STR policy was adopted for Holly Lake Ranch. This includes property owner responsibility for all actions of their guests and a cap on the maximum number 30 STRs allowed. If elected, will you support those policies or seek to amend any part of them? Please share your views on this subject.
Okay, I'm getting it out right there right now. I managed an STR for 3 months. And then the owner, because it was just last year, then the owner said, what a great time to sell. And they sold it, I'm out of it. And I don't have one now. I was very much in favor of the end result of that really rough year. It really created a lot of divides in the ranch, and it's sorry that that happened that way. But I have absolutely no desire to reopen that can of worms. I think 30 represents about 1.5% of all homes that we have out here. And I think that from what I understand, most of them will run well, and they're by and large quiet. If there's an issue, the property manager handles it. And so, I mean, the one I managed, I ended up being really good friends with the next door neighbor. He's got signs of mine in his yard. I didn't know him before. So essentially, I think they serve a good purpose, and I want to expand on this just a little bit more. They serve a really good purpose out here. We just spent, about $200,000 on a really great veranda. I love it. I mean, we're not going to have to build it again either, because it's there, right? So it's great. And we really want to have events out there, and we really are looking at, big things like the wedding. That's wonderful. Where's the wedding party going to stay? At the Blue Bonnet? So, those are real issues. The STRs provide some lodging out here. We are clearly in the back 40. We're way out. We love it being way out, but that's a part of it too. So if we have the STRs that are responsibly managed and can have that capacity to help out some of those events, that really helps out the ranch, in my opinion.
Okay, this is a
But I don't want to increase the numbers. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, here's your other last one, and you can circle back. There are several properties that obviously do not comply with the HOA rules and regulations, trash, weeds, etc. There are several properties that obviously do not comply or care, and that's why they have vehicles, etc. in their yard. What enforcement measures exist that will ensure compliance with regard to the rules and regs? Fines and liens don't seem to be getting the job done. Our leadership needs to quit passing the buck on to the next group of board members. My suggestion is that we pay the fees relative to foreclosure, settle the tax liabilities with state and county, clean up the site, and move on with selling, developing, and collecting the fees associated with the new owners and the improved property. It's never going to get less expensive than to deal with right now. What are your thoughts?
Actually, on the face of it, I would agree with that. Let's go get it. Let's clean them out and take care of it. But my understanding is that foreclosure is going to be very, very difficult. The judge is always going to give the current owner an opportunity to pay just enough that they'll put it off. I know of at least one property like that. I mean, I'm sure you guys know more, but I know of one property exactly like that. It is a mess. There are animals living in it, but they won't sell, and they just keep pushing it off and paying just enough so that the judge will not allow foreclosure. So it is a tough nut. I think you'll find that I'm in agreement with the idea of going to get it. It's just, can you legally go finish the job, because you do have some uphill battles to fight.
Excellent. Okay, you can circle back to anything you'd like to talk more about, and Tom will let you know when you got 5 minutes left.
Oh, gee, I get to circle back.
Well, anything you want to talk about more, or anything you'd just like to address, jump in there.
Okay, well, let me figure this out here a little bit. Gee, if I wait here long enough, it'll be 5 minutes, I get it.
Todd, you want to just take questions from the audience?
Let's just take questions.
Okay. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
here I come.
Okay, you talked about communication with the ranch.
Yes.
As I understand it, 20% of our ranch does not have the ability to access communication via computer. It's all paper and whatnot in order to communicate. How are you going to communicate with those folks in the community that you can't send a Facebook or an email or something to without driving the budget up?
Well, we currently send out a newsletter, right?
Yeah,
Every month.
yeah.
And we also have this blast. Now, the blast needs to be improved because all those pretty pictures don't take you anywhere.
But the blast is electronic.
But you're right. You're actually right. Pardon me, but the people, we do send out a newsletter every month, and so they get those issues that way. And then, so I agree with you that we have a good number of folks out here, I didn't know it was 20%,
I
that,
just heard that.
okay, so I do agree that that is a problem. We are kind of in this between two worlds of the computer generation and the paper generation, and so I can understand the difficulty, but I think that if we can also make use of the bulletin boards, that they can ride by the bulletin boards and see those. We're sending out the newsletter, and we're communicating electronically. So we can hit all three of those, but I think you're exactly right. We need to do it all. Yes, ma'am.
In regards to this contract that's gonna be signed on the 8th,
Yes, ma'am.
would you be willing to, and do you agree that we should be allowed to have an open forum meeting before that's done?
Absolutely do.
With questions?
Absolutely do. I hope they do, because I think this is a big enough deal, and that we need to really understand it. I've read through the whole presentation, as you probably all know, because I wrote that note. And I think it's a good thing. I do have some things that are gnawing the back of my brain, so I'm not 100% there. I'm about 95% there. But as long as these things are ironed out.
Could you repeat the question? We couldn't hear the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Answers.
She was asking. She was asking about the deal here, and if we should have a town hall. And I absolutely agree we should. This is too big a deal for the ranch, for us to just let it slide by without public comment.
Just so we can ask the question.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Would you go to the board and encourage them to have this?
Already have.
Could you
Thank you
encourage
for
them
that.
some more?
Yeah, hey,
Please.
I have two things.
Sure.
First thing is, when we moved here, the thing,
Yes.
sorry. When we moved here, the thing that,
Not on. It's conspiring against.
Check, check.
There you go.
when we moved here, the thing that was really exciting about us being here as part of the community was having a good security environment. Gated access and all that. Rumors have it, they're not being treated very well, and they're trying to degrade the service coverage of the areas. How do you feel about that, and what would you do to support the security of Holly Lake Ranch?
I hadn't heard that, sorry? Oh, okay. He was asking about security. He's concerned that the security is being degraded,
Yes.
and wants to know what I would do to support security. So, and I hadn't heard that particular angle, so I'm shooting from the hip here. I think in a survey a few years ago, the number one reason why people moved to Holly Lake Ranch was security. When I first moved out here, I was a weekender, and I wanted my stuff in my house to be there next weekend when I showed up. And I love the idea of security. But I think we've had some issues this year, and I'm not throwing rocks at security so much. I'm a little nervous about, do they know what they can and cannot do? And I really don't want to I want to make sure that not only we protect it, but we need to make sure that every time a security person goes out someplace and does something, they don't land in jail or in court.
Right.
So we need to make sure we align security with what they can and cannot do.
Proper training.
Yes.
Yeah, and proper training. Yes, yes,
Follow-up
sir.
question to that. Are you aware of the line item for security training in the budget for next year?
I am not aware.
$3,000.
That's a little shy. That's a little shy.
Yeah, the second question that I had, what was it? Let me move on, because I
Okay,
forgot.
right behind you. Right behind you. Yes, ma'am.
I actually have two questions, and the first one is regarding maintenance of the Holly Lake property. Who's gonna maintain it? Because right now they wanted outsource it all because our maintenance can't do it, but yet we're paying for maintenance, so that's one question. The other question is, I haven't seen, I'm not gonna say I have researched it a lot, but anytime I watch Jeff's financials, I've never seen where the money coming in from the short-term rental permits is going and how much it is.
Your second question, I have no idea. It's a good question. I can't answer your question on that one. On your first question, I think there's to me, maintenance, there's going to be a level at which they have the real competency to handle some things. Let's face it, they can cut grass and pick up sticks like the best of them. And we need to do that, especially during this time of year, right? There's a lot of sticks needed to pick up. Maybe not as much grass, because nothing's growing. But at any rate, but into the winter time months, that's the time they can do a lot of the other fixes. You can switch your staff a little bit. But on things that are going to be bigger ticket items that are maybe call for a little more professionalism, I'd much rather have a contractor do that, because then I gotta throat the choke if it's not right. If it's our own maintenance guys that just didn't have the competency to do that electrical work, and then all of a sudden something happens, and you start looking around for somebody to blame, you're looking in the mirror. But if it's C&W Electric or whatever, you hey, get out here and fix it now. What's it, C&B? Okay, C&B.
But are they under contract to do it at a reduced rate because they're kind of like on call?
I am not privy to that information, but I think it's, I'm not privy to it. I couldn't tell you. Not on the board yet.
Over here. The other question I had was regarding Section 6.
Yes, sir.
And having access to the greater community. There used to be a trail that went between properties from Section 6 over to Section 2, 5, right in that area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, will that ever happen as a part of this new agreement? Because we have no egress. We have no egress associated with, if there was a fire, we only have one way out.
Mm-hmm.
We have nowhere else to go. Yes.
I don't know that will be available to have that pathway you're talking about. I know at one time Valleywood was supposed to have been cut through, but it never happened. You clearly live in Section 6, but I was. Hey, well, that's fine.
I love it.
A lot of people like the quiet and everything else in Section 6. My next door neighbor now in Section 5 used to live in Section 6. He said, I didn't want any connection because I like being out of there.
Yeah.
So you can play that both ways. But as far as I think you're mixing two things, is just having the ability to get to the ranch and having the ability to get out of the ranch when you have to. And so
well,
I think
there's that, but there's also being able to get to the amenities via golf cart, that kind of thing, that we don't have the luxury of doing, yet we pay the same dues as everybody else.
yes, but you still have the ability to get there in your car.
True.
And you bought out there knowing that was the case.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. All I'm looking for is a new opportunity for Section 6.
I would be more interested in looking for an emergency egress.
Well, that more importantly, yes.
Well, when we lived there, they said you were supposed to go through that pasture where the tree farm is now. That's what they told us.
Well, that's trespassing.
Well, I asked them.
Guess what? I wouldn't care.
You were supposed to just mow down the fence or what?
Okay,
I can see this is one of those things where we all probably have questions about that. I've two questions here for you. Actually, I have like 7 or 8, but I'll only ask you 2. So, what is your opinion on the feasibility study funding for the back gate in Section 8?
Okay, I was at a candidate meeting on that just last week, and I would not be opposed nor or for that study. I felt as though when I got done with the meeting, I was very much in a neutral position. I will tell you that I was troubled. There were only 74 respondents to the survey that was taken. And I also understand the methodology, at least part of the methodology was seeing somebody walking down a road near a golf cart and asking them about it and trying to work them to sign your petition. Didn't really like that so much. So to me, I would probably have been more amenable to it had there been a more focused survey on the people in section 8 and 9 that would really be looking to, that would be really theirs. Now, I realize people say, well, but the whole ranch buys it. But let's face it, section 8 and section 9 are gonna be the ones using it. And so I would have been more impressed if there had been a focus and you had more respondents to the survey. So I left there saying, if the current board voted for it, I'd be fine. If the current board voted against it, I'd be fine. That's how I ended up.
Okay.
That's probably the last question here, so.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 minute.
1 minute, real fast.
1 minute.
Pass, Dan,
Real
pass.
fast.
Will you work to Indy? Thank you for your comment approach to all the questions that are directed at the board meetings.
I will loop back to
It's
my
just so irritating.
I will loop back to my comments regarding communication. I feel that has been a failure. Just better communication all down the line. And I think at that point, if you're staying at that, as I structured it, with getting feedback from the floor in month number 1, then getting feedback from other avenues in the in-between time, and then voting on it at a later board meeting, I think it's appropriate at that time saying thank you for your comments, because you're tallying the feedback. But when you're essentially involved in just a show, and you say thank you for your comments, and it's just not going to go anywhere, I'm not real big on that. I'll tell you, I find that just as irritating as you do.
That's it, time.
Okay, time.
That's
You
it.
made it, Todd.
Thank you.
I want to thank Lori for putting this together. I'm not going to lie to you, I was nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs when I came in here. But it's been, you've been very kind, and I really appreciate it.
Rich's way.
I really didn't want the next door experience. So, so thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Amen.